morning. I'm Dean Trippe. This is the TADA Studio Garage, and today we're going to look at an easy way to draw people. Let's get started. All right, so the first thing to do when we're going to draw a person is to start with a head. And you'll remember from yesterday's lesson, we drew someone's face, which also goes on a head. So we're going to start with our egg shape. Remember from the other day. I'm going to make that a little bit higher. So the biggest thing about drawing a person, you remember yesterday we talked about how like faces, kids draw faces with this kind of look, right? Well, think about how kids draw bodies. They start with this stick figure shape. And again, I've seen some really great stick figure comics, and people have done their own modified version of stick figures. So there's nothing wrong with drawing with a stick figure. But if we want to do a more detailed person that can do more poses and can run and jump and fly, we're going to start with a similar construction. So let's draw a line coming down from the head. Kind of looks like a balloon on a string, doesn't it? And then down here at the bottom, we're going to draw a curved line and a curved line for the eye line. Across at this point, we want to draw a line just like we did over here, but we're going to do one over on the main drawing. But instead of this, like this one is supposed to represent like arms. This one over here represents shoulders, okay? So let's draw some circles to represent shoulders. And I'll say one of the hardest things to convince people of when they're new to drawing regularly is that you can do these loose, sketchy lines and not make them perfect. You see how I'm scribbling. It just doesn't matter. None of this is going to be in the final drawing. From the shoulders, you can draw a line down to that curved line we did at the bottom, and that represents the person's belt line, all right? So let's add a little curved box that's going to be our hips. So now we're getting kind of a shape going with our person. So we've got a torso and a head, like your upper body and a head, and some hips. Let's draw a string line coming down to a circle for the elbows. And then on each half of the hips box, we're going to draw a circle line going down. I'm close to running out of room, but the great thing about Clip Studio and working digitally is you can just make your drawing a little bit smaller using the transform and selection tools. So I'm switching back to my pencil tool, which is the main thing I sketch with. All right, so now we've got our head, torso, hips, shoulders out to the elbows, and hips out to the knees. From our elbows, let's draw a line down to our hands. And you'll notice the hands are just below the hips in the area of the thigh of the leg, like at that height. So now all we have to do is draw the lines down from the knees to the feet. And I usually draw kind of like a doorstop for my feet. All right, so now we've got this is like our stick figure version, okay? But the real trick is when you start connecting some of these circles. So I'm going to connect the shoulders down to the elbows, and then the elbows down to the hands. Then the hips down to the knees, and the knees down to the feet. And let's make our neck have some weight to it. Maybe some meat there for above your collarbone. All right, so here's our guy. He's not perfect. He's not in perfect proportions, but what's great about him is you can now make this kind of shape into any pose you want, because you know where the joints are. I'm going to do the joints in red. You've got these joint points that can all move and do different actions. All right. So let's make this a little bit lighter and we'll draw on top of it. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I lightened the opacity. There's a slider right above a layer that lets you lighten the opacity of a layer. But now I'm going to just trace around my drawing, and you'll see it really starts to come together. And you can like adjust your lines as you're going and like find the perfect line. Because the likelihood that your first sketch line is going to be the perfect line for your character is not, it's not very likely anyway. But if you find the line by drawing down some sketch lines, you know, your odds are pretty good that you can find like a line that looks good to you. You know, like I went to art school, we did a lot of life drawing, and a lot of my influences, like Bruce Timm, Darwin Cook, Mike Mignola, these guys have major shortcuts in their drawing style that have helped me. Mike Mignola, Mike Waringo too. And all right, so we've got our shape. And you can make this more into more of a boy character, more of a girl character. That's totally up to you at this point. It's just sort of like a gender neutral human figure. And let's add some of the stuff we did on our face the other day. And mouth, nose. Let's give this person like a big floopy over hair on one side and no hair on the other, like was really popular about a year ago, but I still think it looks cool. All right. So now you can add on your costume. You can give them some fingers so they are making fists or not making fists. And I really like making up superheroes, so you can add a costume to this character and give them a cape. But the great thing about this kind of construction, like I was saying a minute ago, is that you can add in little details that make it like look like a pose, right? So let me zoom in to some blank space here. So like if you were drawing this character running, you can draw the same shapes, but just doing different things. And if you get used to drawing in this style for your construction, you can do it really fast, like I'm doing right here. So you can have your character like running or flying. And it's like almost no work at all once you get really used to drawing these like stick figure construction people to make your person. So I'm gonna finish out this character with one more layer. Just lighten up these layers a little bit and add one more. So let me switch to my red pencil. you're wondering why I draw with color pencil tools, it's because when I was in school, we had a day where we needed to use non-repro blue pencils, which is a special kind of blue pencil that when you photocopy your drawing, all the blue sketch lines underneath your graphite black pencil won't show up, but the your black lines will when you photocopy it. And as a way to do like sketches, kind of like this with layers, but using traditional media. But I really hated the way non-repro blue pencils felt when you dragged them on paper or Bristol board. It was like this waxy, sticky kind of pencil that didn't even feel like smooth to write with. So I used this kind of color pencil called a Color-Ace pencil instead, because I just couldn't get used to drawing with those waxy non-repro blues, and they're really light, like a really light cyan, so it was hard to see them. But I found out later that a lot of like comic book artists also use these Color-Ace blue pencils that don't really perfectly work for the non-repro aspect, but they had like a very cool texture to them when you draw. They actually were like kind of better than graphite pencils, like better than drawing with a graphite pencil, because graphite is kind of scratchy when you draw on it. So I'm making this like a super kid. All right, lines going. A little more personality in the eyebrows. And I didn't draw the big ones that I had on my sketch there. Pretty done. Let's finish that cape out so that you can tell that it's a cape, because that was my idea. All right, so here's our little super guy. And that's all we're going to do for today. If you've drawn a different kind of superhero, please feel free to email me at deantrippe.com. And if you don't like drawing people, it really probably is because you just need a little bit more practice. And thanks for following along and watching this video with me, and have a great day.